Who in this debate is closer to the good guy? The guy who's on camera is unquestionably the good guy of this conversation.
The idea of the Jews being a nationality that needs to colonize this one specific place.
That's the state of Israel you're characterizing. You're not characterizing the people who live there. You're characterizing the state of Israel when you say that.
Yeah, it is. This is. Do you not realize that there was an entire movement of settler colonialism in the late 19th century, right? That led to the creation of the state of Israel, right? So many of the people.
Go on. I'm joking. Go on.
You've never heard of it. Yeah, I know you haven't. I know you're joking, but I already know you don't really know much about it, right?
Okay.
So this was, from the very beginning, this was the intention of this movement, right? There were Jews who were already there beforehand, but the intention of this movement was always to go there to misplace the original population and to form their own ethno-state, okay?
There have always been Jewish people in that reason. This is straight up anti-Semitism. Yeah, and well, even if that wasn't the case, you can't hold a person accountable for the crimes of their government. That's insane. Like, you can't, like, you're born... It doesn't matter whether or not you were there before or after. You could be born into the most colonial government in the universe. You're just born there, you know. You have to impugn people for shit they actually do. Hot take. No, it's incredibly insane.
Why did you retweet like a straight up settler colonialism advocate?
Okay, why do you think I'm pro-necrophilia?
Politics, so I can't really tell.
Why do you think I'm pro-necrophilia?
Because it's funny. You're a necrophiliac. Why not?
So, okay. So it's all just a meme, right? You're gonna back off these claims because they're...
I do admire the bravado of the schizo posting there, you know? Like, just a man arguing with his own acid, like, hallucinations. His own, like, acid trip demons. Yeah. I really like, Bad... Or, not Bad I really like Lonerbox. Is Bad Empanada's, logic very essentialist and ethno-nationalist-y? Yeah. Bad Empanada's a, conservative. Like, again, it's just another one of those, like, lefty because the groups you hate with a reactionary fervor are like white people and Americans and stuff. Like, yeah, that's... Yeah.
All Israelis are colonized.
So he does. So all Israelis deserve the wall.
If they support
you can't say that.
settler colonialism and the terrorist IDF, yeah, sure, why not?
They just deserve the wall.
Yeah, sure, why not? If they support the fucking literal IDF, the SS of our age,
wait,
absolutely.
You said all Israelis, now we're saying ones who support the IDF. You realize these are different people,
The guy who you're referring to here, was straight up defending the fucking IDF and advocating for Israeli settler colonialism. So they don't... And you're focusing on my tone, right? You're just trying to tone police me. Tone policing.
That's not a tone, that's a moral statement that you've changed. First it was all Israelis, now it's Israelis who support the IDF. Which one is it?
You said all Israelis.
You said colonizers get the wall. I guess if Israelis are colonizers... Right?
Do you think that when some guy shows up on fucking Twitter or whatever, and he's like, "Oh man, I love the IDF, I love settler colonialism," then I'm not allowed to just call him a piece of shit. I'm not allowed to say that you're a fucking colonizer. Get the fuck out of here.
It's not that you called him a piece of shit. It's that you said he deserves the wall.
He does.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But just not like all Israelis deserve the wall,
anyone
right?
advocates for Nazi settler colonialism deserves the wall too. What's the meaningful difference
People who... Do you think Eris deserves the wall?
Is she an advocate for settler colonialism? Is she colonizing land? Does she support continuing to colonize this land?
You tell me.
I think she doesn't even live there. Honestly, I'm not even sure.
But you think she's supporting them? You think she's supporting a Jewish ethno state in Israel?
She's a fucking anime. She's literally an anime. Her name's not even Eris.
Don't walk away from the fucking claim.
You're complaining about me bullying a fucking ventriloquist dummy.
You said... Give me a break. I'm asking you if she deserves the wall. According to your rules, she probably...
Intensive re-education.
You think she needs intensive re-education?
Absolutely.
In a camp?
I mean, you call it a camp, whatever you want. Prison. Denazification was a thing, you understand?
Sure.
What, was that bad?
In Finland.
I think you didn't go far enough.
Okay.
Denazification.
I fucking love Ben Empanada, dude. He's so like, he's actually so unwell that in the same convo, he can go from saying that Eris has Nazi views to saying that she needs to be re-educated in a camp. Like, he's so open, you know? He's like a dissection, you know, like you can see all the organs and stuff. Nothing is hidden from you. It's phenomenal.
I'm sure that's why she said, in my opinion.
Get like a little summary just so we can catch up, right? So you're okay with a two-state solution, band-aid solution right now because it might provide more breathing space or room for progress in the future. Eventually, you'd like to see...
is impossible.
Eventually, you'd like to see a one-state solution.
State solution is completely impossible.
But getting the state of Israel to abolish itself is not impossible, apparently. Okay.
To abolish itself, you know, that doesn't really make sense. Do you think that this hasn't happened in the past, that international pressure cannot force incredibly radical changes in societies that there do not exist prior examples of this happening. I went over them, and you're
I
still
just wonder if we can barely.
You know, I really don't know what he's going on about. I can't think of a single example of a state stopping something like this because of, like, public pressure from other countries. I'm trying to think, like, if you backed it up with, like, massive real threats, like the U.S. threatening to cut off their fucking Dosh supply or whatever, then okay. But the idea of, like, if we all wish upon a star, we can make Israel not... I don't even... Like, what are you gonna do? I don't get it. He's dog whistling? I do think he's anti-Semitic, yeah. Didn't he say that, like, knowing Hebrew makes you a Zionist or some shit? Yeah, Lonerbox, that's the issue. Lonerbox, unironically, the reason why, like, I've kind of fallen off the research document a bit, even though I want to pick it back up for, like, trans stuff, because I want to make, like, a better doc, is that, like, research doesn't matter when you talk to conservatives, because you're entering retard land anyway, you know? You're entering the clown car with a one trip stop at the circus. What the fuck does research matter, you know? Like, it never comes up. You're arguing vibes with these people the whole fucking time.
Get international pressure for a two-state solution. How are we going to get it for a one-state with no Israel?
Have you heard of something like you doing things, us doing things?
Well, I used to do activism for
our governments.
Yeah. Oh, so what? You want to BDS Israel out of existence? Is that where we're at now?
Have you heard of doing
South
things?
Africa? Why wouldn't it work here?
South Africa didn't abolish itself as a country. It didn't stop existing.
South Africa essentially abolished itself entirely in all practical terms. South Africa abolished minority government.
What?
Has a new constitution.
It had a democratic reform. It didn't abolish the fucking state. Jesus Christ.
One of the big criticisms about South Africa is that apartheid ended, but then the same economic stratification stayed barely moved, didn't it? Wasn't that one of the big problems?
The economic stratification doesn't particularly mean that the state was not essentially replaced with something radically different.
Okay, but South Africa still exists, right? Like, this is not the same as a state getting abolished by international pressure.
It has the same name. Okay, huge deal.
So you're like,
Russia has the same name.
Did we like shift?
Russia
did we just erode all
inherited a lot of the positions of the Soviet Union?
Yeah. So did we
for example, its position on the UN, is Russia the same state as the Soviet Union? Is it the exact same? Do you think like there needs to be like some sort of ceremonial abolition of Israel, the Israel abolishment ceremony or something?
I
don't give a fuck.
Okay, how do we do it then? Without a BDS, we're going to BDS Israel, a nuclear power, into just giving up all its borders and all its like crazy, wacky.
You're just restating the same
position
position that I've already responded to.
It's just because it's ridiculous. It's not a solution. It's not advocacy.
Ridiculous.
You're LARPing.
My man,
you're just standing on a hill, beating your chest into the void.
I'm like, buddy, 60% of Palestinians are LARPers, according to you. Interesting position. Interesting position. This is liberalism. Like, you're trying to regulate the acceptable spectrum of opinion by framing anything that really goes.
You liberal, you're trying to frame the acceptable spectrum of opinion to exclusively non-retarded suggestions. How dare you? How dare you try to suppress my bold range of suggestions? Like, did you know people can do things? And a constitutional reform is the same as abolishing a country.
You do a population exchange, it's very hard to reverse the change because you basically just recreate the problem even worse when you try to reverse it. And this is one of the problems with the Palestinians having the right to return, because they want to take up space. They want to, come return, and they're a much larger population now.
We're stopping that one.
Okay, that's the first clip. What do you think about that?
Okay, so she said if you do a population exchange, the effects are sometimes worse, right? Then
wait, nothing about that was inaccurate at all. Like, yeah, obviously, there would be civic problems if you brought millions and millions of Palestinians back, and, like, just, like, and the population was, like, fucking, yeah, like swallowed, like, of course there'd be civic problems. Yeah, like, obviously, the trick would be dealing with them.
Yeah, and she's using that as an argument for right of return.
Okay, so that's, again, we're talking about a hypothetical where right of return means, like, potentially, like, 1 million plus people from Palestine come to
and why
Israel.
does she not want them to come?
And then what happens?
There's no space.
Do not come.
There's also.
Do you understand where there's no space argument comes from? For one, a fellow named Frederick Ratzel.
Okay, wait.
He
remind me.
The term Lebensraum.
Wait, hold on. Friedrich Lapsel invented the argument millions of people entering this small territory would be civically difficult. You know, the famous concept that Nazis invented, an acknowledgement of density, population density as a concept. Before them, you know, it was a mystery.
And how long were they there for?
They went there. Okay, let's change it then if you want to make it something about length, because apparently settler colonialism just stops, you know, after an arbitrary length of time. Okay, let's say
I'm not asking.
Well, to be fair, yeah. There's not a patch of Earth on this planet that's currently controlled by people who have had uncontested control over it since the beginning of humanity. Yeah, obviously. Every, you know, yeah, like, clearly, there's nowhere on Earth is that the case. There's always some older group.
You about
the
what's
Nazis,
moral.
The Nazis
I'm asking you about
I'm
how
framing
you do
this
it.
in the correct terms. I'm framing this in the correct terms, okay?
Also, isn't that literally the Zionist argument? Because the Jews held Israel like 4,000 years ago, so they should have like uncontested, like it's like their 100% like total right to go back there. If you don't believe it expands after some arbitrary length of time, then you should be the first advocate for the fucking Israel resettlement. Jesus.
So if we
There's
do
no moralization there at all.
But you understand, if we do action this, then in parts of the country as well, Palestinians are going to get kicked out because of in exchange for Jewish families who were kicked out in '48, right?
Basically, any Palestinian who lives in these areas.
Okay, go on.
Any Palestinian. Oh yeah, you totally got. Any Palestinian who lives in these areas, practically the majority of them are there because they've been forced there. And the reason why Jews were expelled from these areas in the first place is essentially as a result of the state of Israel being formed. It was a reaction.
So
okay, what?
I didn't hear a yes or a no there.
Well, the only reason they were expelled from those areas is because things happen. You see, causality exists.
I have a question for you, Lonerbox. If I own a factory that I inherited from my parents, is it wrong for you to appropriate it from me?
To appropriate a factory that you inherited from your parents?
So the difference here is that, materially speaking, if you inherited that factory, you would then be the owner of the factory, and in a material sense, you would be the same as your father in terms of what you hold, your relationship to the means production. What Bad Empanada is doing is saying that because of your ethnicity, you are more, it's bad when you do a thing, as opposed to when another ethnicity does the same thing. Like that, like it's critically different. There's no relationship here.
Yeah, is it?
Wait,
I inherited it from my parents.
Can you? Okay,
is it my fault?
Can you explain?
Is it my fault that I own this factory?
Wait, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Jewish people who were moved off of land that they lived on for like that their families lived on for over 1,000 years.
You're making a bunch of random analogies.
Oh, by the way, one other thing. Unironically, this is pretty close to Nazi rhetoric. Using the rhetorical framework of class warfare when ascribing people's ethnicities is incredibly yikesy. He's literally, like, the logic of material analysis of class differences is that, like, action can be provoked against the bourgeois because they're the material holders of powers over the proletariat. But he's applying that to an ethnic lens. The critical difference here being, of course, that ethnicity is something you're associated with, something ascribed to you, whereas you owning a factory is something you can change. You have control over it. You can decide to give away the factory. You can decide to, I don't know, be a super progressive cool dude that people don't want to fucking take the factory. You know, you can do shit about that. But your ethnicity? Nope. That's, I've got you on that one.
I left. Oh, God. Oh, that was fucking crazy. Holy shit.
Good memes.